everyone. Welcome back to the Star Wars Expanded Universe. Navigated by Disney, or Lucasfilm, whichever way you slice it. Legends. Today I have for you Book 10 in the X-Wing series Mercy Kill. Sorry about the cut. But yes. So here's the thing. Before we even get into the non-spoiler review and then the spoiler review, here's the thing. This takes place after Fate of the Jedi. It's 44 years after the Battle of Yavin. It is book 10 in a series. However, if you were to be like, I want to read all the X-Wing books and not like read things in chronological order, and you read, like the first 9 and then got to this one, you're going to be really, really, really confused, I think. Because here's the thing. The last X-Wing novel took place 3 decades ago. It's been like almost over 30 years, maybe a little bit less, since the last X-Wing book. You know what's happened in between the time of the last X-Wing book? The Yusong-Vong War, the Second Galactic Civil War, the Killik Crisis, Fate of the Jedi. A lot of stuff has gone down. And so, for any returning characters, it needs to catch you up to speed on what they've been up to in the past 3 decades. It also mentions stuff from just the last series that we have. How the current chief of state is Dorvin. We also have stuff, about the Yusong-Vong War, which if you haven't read that, you'll be like, what's that about? Even though that's a little bit easier, you don't necessarily need that one. But then there's stuff mentioned about the Second Galactic Civil War, some of the characters we have here from past series are affected from that. So, do you have to read those to understand this? No, but if you don't, I feel like there's a lot of things that are going to confuse you, because it's so late in the timeline. At least when it comes to the Luke Skywalker era, because of course there's legacy and everything. So that is my forewarning. Now we're going to get into our non-spoiler section, so I'll get to that in a second. Lots of cuts in this one. It can't be helped. But non-spoiler. So we have it's Vort now, which we'll talk about why he's taken that name in spoilers. Face Lorn gets him to come back to do another mission with Miri Antilles, the youngest of the Antilles daughters. We met her older sister in Legacy of the Force, or at least explored her a bit. Behindi, or however you say her name, Yusong-Vong, raised by humans, and a couple other characters along the way for good measure, for some good old-fashioned X-Wing fun as they go to stop and capture Thale, who I believe was the guy who made the other guy pull the trigger in the Fate of the Jedi series in that one scene with, what was the guy's name? Jarek? Something. The guy that he told to shoot, and he did, or he suffered a fate worse. And so that is basically the non-spoiler plot of the book. That is what's going on. So we're bringing back Wraith Squadron, unofficially, of course. also some of our characters from, because there's new characters, but we also have some characters from past books who have a bit of flashbacks as we get to see some of the major events that we haven't seen them in, see what's been going on over the past 30 years. So that is something. I try not to be too vague. That is basically the plot synopsis. They want to go stop Thal because he's been a shady person since Fate of Jedi. He was unofficially nobody. He tried to loose all of his ties to the Lesserin conspiracy in Fate of the Jedi, but they know there's something up with that, and he's also doing stuff illegally with the black market. So that is what they're trying to capture him on, because they're not officially part of the government on this mission. They are, it's kind of like think about the other ones, just not ordained by the government, I guess, to be done. So, but it's a fine read. It's not bad or anything. It's fun. It's certainly not one of the best the X-Wings have to offer. But it was nice to have a sort of one-off story that is separate from the big stuff with Han, Luke, and Leia and everything. Because and plus Thal was a loose thread that was never really resolved in the Fate of the Jedi series. So it's nice to finally have that come to a close. And it's just nice to see some old familiar faces again. And have a nice, a little bit more light-hearted adventure than the past, 3 adventures have been. So that's about it for non-spoiler. I'm going to get into spoilers, so if you don't want spoilers, it's time to get out. Anyway, I'll see you with that. I'm having all the cuts for this one, because that's why. Mostly because I'm trying to make sure there are no interruptions while I do this. So, I'll see you then. Alrighty, well, first off, we get a flashback to 31 years ago, prior to the events of this book, with just catching up with some of our characters. I imagine it takes place after the last novel of the X-Wings that we read. But it shows all of our characters together and what's going on with them and the relationships that continue to build, because it's been 30 years since what's happened, so you can see a bit of that. Then we cut back to present day. We learn that Face Lauren has retired from the military after Jason's rampage across the galaxy, because once he started doing all that stuff, basically any officer that stayed in the Galactic Alliance or didn't go against him, even though no one did at the time, they weren't dishonorably discharged or anything. They were just subtly, forcibly retired from service. So that's what happened to Face after all that. And then the next thing of note that I put is that we get we go forward in time in the flashbacks, but we're now 15 years ago exactly, which was the time of the Yusong Vong War. So we get to learn about what was going on with Piggy during that time, during a Wraith Squadron mission, during the Yusong Vong War, that we didn't get to see. And we learn why Piggy left Wraith Squadron and became Vort, as he's been called throughout most of this book. One of his good pals, Runt, dies by the Yusong Vong, and Piggy just loses the will for it to keep going. Face is like, no, you'll be fine. You'll keep fighting. We're almost winning against these Vong. You'll see. But Piggy says, no, I'm done. And he's not Piggy anymore. He's Vort, because that's what Runt called him. So, which we got to see the relationship continue to build a bit in the previous flashback. But so now we know why he's not a part of Race Squadron, why he's become a math teacher for a bunch of kids that don't care. Then we learn about one of what is it with me and these like characters who are seemingly bad and then become this? Because we had Piggy, who, as far as we knew in episode 6, were just a bunch of dumb idiots that try to kill Luke, and then here he is being a super smart guy. Now we have a Vong, who was a part of the Shamed cast, who was abandoned and raised by humans. I loved it. The moment I read that, I was like, yes, I want more of this. I'm all for it. Give me it. And so now we have Scott, who is an interesting character, and of course, due to the flashback scenes we see, and I'm sure Piggy is not the only. I don't care if he calls himself Ford. He's Piggy. It's not just Piggy though. I'm sure a lot of people feel that way about the Vong, but he is extremely racist for good portions of the book toward Scott, because he's like, you're a filthy Vong, you can't be trusted. Though of course, he's a good guy. So. Thal was already a pretty bad dude from what I saw of him in Fate of the Jedi. But then we learn he got married to a woman, and he stayed married to her for a while, and then she got a bit older, and he basically told her, hey, I'll stay married to you, don't want to embarrass you or anything, but we're done. You're simply too old now. I'm into younger women, so I'm going to have mistresses and stuff. I don't want to, by law we'll be together, but in our hearts I'm not interested anymore. And it made him drop even further down in terms of badness. You don't, marriage is forever. I'm sorry. The only good reason to, I know I'm a young guy, I'm not married, so what right do I have, right? But unless they're beating you, beating your kids, disrespecting you at every turn, it's forever. That's the vow. Through good times and bad, through sickness and through health. Society has made that a piece of paper. But it transcends so much more than that. It's supposed to mean so much more. It's supposed to be forever. So the idea that this guy married her just because she was young, and he liked younger girls, and dropped her the moment she stopped being sexually pleasing, I guess, to him, is ridiculous. But on top of that, we also learn with Thal that he survived the Vong occupation of Coruscant. In fact, he did raids against that. But he also survived Kip's massacre back in the Jedi Academy trilogy. So, because they're trying to figure out, like, what's his motive, what's he trying to do, because he equally could hate the Jedi, along with equally hating the Vong and stuff, because of having a Force user blow up several planets during the Jedi Academy trilogy. And then, of course, everyone hates, a lot of people are prejudiced against the Vong because of what happened. But yeah. So that was interesting to find out about Thal. And then, Thal. We find out that Thal is selling Bacta to the black market, but it's a scam because, and this is actually like, this is not like a Abeloth villain or a Emperor Palpatine or anything like that, but the idea in of itself is really evil. It's just a really horrible thing to do. Basically, what this guy is doing is he's getting basically, what is it, like, you know when you work at a food place and you have food that's like about to go bad, and so sometimes you're allowed to take that home. This guy is taking Bacta that's like about to go bad, you know, paying favors and stuff, having people in the hospitals pour out that into a separate like container. They take that, they repackage that as normal Bacta, even though by the time it actually gets to hospitals, it's gonna be useless. And so you have people, especially during the Vong War, who are in need of medical assistance, and the doctor's like, oh, no problem, let's get you some Bacta, except it's not effective. Like, that whole thought, that's just pure evil. I can't believe, like think about it in real life. Like, that's just horrible. Anyway, I'll catch back up with you in a second. But anyway, yeah, the whole idea of just like a doctor not realizing, using medicine that is null and void, and just watching that person die because of crappy people like Thal. So anyway, the next note after that, Bindi, she gets shot, and she dies. So there's your death for the book, and it wasn't nice. I mean, to be fair, it's been so long, I don't really remember Bindi, but I'm pretty sure she's been in other stuff, so it's still not cool to see. Right, so in the flashback, during the Yusong Vong War with Piggy, what I forgot to mention is Runt, his friend, gets poisoned by the Vong's Ampastaff. And he decides, as the title implies, to give him a mercy kill. He sticks the gun to his head, pulls the trigger. Because he realizes, Runt's like, you know, if they have a toxin for it, they might have an antidote for it. If they have an antidote for it, I'll probably suffer worse torture than I would if I just died here. But I don't want to suffer the slow toxin, so can you take me out? So Piggy does, and from then on calls himself Vort till the end of this book. I love how many side characters, no matter how small their part is in this book, they're all affected by different big events in the Star Wars Expanded Universe. For example, Hunhana, I guess Hui, maybe for short, is a Wookiee, and she was affected by Jason's evil, by Jason burning down Kashyyyk. That affected her life in a major way. Even though she's a side character and not a main character to anything in Star Wars, but she is still affected by bigger events at play, and I love that. And she joins up because of that, and well, that's like one of the reasons. But also, Strut and Piggy have a discussion because Strut doesn't think he's worth the time, doesn't think he's worthy fit to be leader, because once Bahindi dies, who's the leader, Piggy says, I'm taking charge. And Strut doesn't like that. And so Piggy wants to know, he says, lay down all the reasons why you don't think I should be leading. And Strut, the Yusong Vong, he says, you know, you're a quitter. You left. You lost some friends and you gave up, and you know, they have this huge long discussion, and Strut's talking about how, you know, you teach these kids in school, do they leave loving math and wanting to become a professor like you or go into engineering? And Piggy's like, no, they don't really seem to care. And he says, it's because you're dead inside. You died during that mission. You've been dying ever since. You haven't been living life. And because your students can see the lack of enthusiasm when you teach, they don't care either. And they just have this huge discussion, which I really enjoyed. Yes, it's a very character moment. Then Piggy also realizes that Strut's been talking about how he was saved and orphaned and how he was raised by humans, but the people who saved him were Wraith Squadron. And so this whole time he's been racist toward Strut, the Yusong Vong, and Strut seemed kind of antagonistic against him because of that, and because he just doesn't think he's a worthy leader. But you find out that he joined this mission because he's been inspired by Wraith Squadron. And so Piggy was a hero to him, along with many others, which makes him feel kind of bad. And so that whole part in the book where Piggy confronts Strut was really cool. I really enjoyed it. And just the idea of also just having a Vong that was raised by humans and doesn't have all the crazy religious stuff associated with himself. I really enjoyed that, and I enjoyed that dynamic in this book. Next up, we just get near the end of the book. There's a bunch of action stuff that goes down, a bunch of stuff we find out with Thal. I'm trying to think, because they try doing this whole scheme and whatnot to catch Thal and stuff, and they successfully do that. Yada yada yada. That stuff, all the action parts of all the X-Wing series never interested me. That all the X-Wing series very much, even the ones written by Michael Stackpole, the ones written by Aaron Olson, always are more about the characters. So for instance, I loved Piggy when he's first introduced, so what we got here was really nice. And then introducing this Yusong Vong, it was really cool, and having characterization with both of them, and Face Lauren and everyone else in between, I really appreciate. It's a much smaller story, but it's still it's a fun one. And so that's why I'm just not mentioning it. The last thing I really wrote down, because I just kind of kept reading, last thing I wrote down of interest was near the very end of the book, Face Lauren has a confrontation, because earlier on in the book there was an assassination attempt on his life. Of course, he evaded the assassination attempt. There was, I think, a bomb on his car. So what he did when he realized that was he made himself bleed and put blood all over the car, to leave evidence of him being dead. He got off, had his robot fly to a specific spot. It blew up. Everybody thought he was dead. And so he confronts this other guy that had been working with Thal. And it was just a fun scene where he was able to be like, yeah, I've been one step ahead of you this whole time. And it's a happy ending for everyone. Oh, right. Piggy dances. There's a earlier part where he goes to dance, and I just thought it was a really funny, imagining Gamorrean, dancing and stuff to distract people. But that was at the point where he realized he was, enjoying himself again. And he goes from Vort, which is why I've ignored calling him Vort for this entire book, back to Piggy. And it's just a happy ending to this fun little story. Yeah, I enjoyed it. It was a fun little read. And yeah, definitely not the best, though, of the X-Wing series. Sad that this was the last book that Aaron Olson ever wrote before passing away. Not that he would have gotten to do much more for Star Wars Expanded Universe anyway because of the Disney buyout. But it's still sad that man, because him, Michael Stackpole, and a few others, I would be completely willing to read the other books, and in fact, I probably shall. But even still, it's just, would have loved to see what else he could have made today. So, with that, we have one final novel in the post-Episode 6 timeline in the Legacy era, Crucible by Troy Denning. And then after that, we move on to the Legacy comics. And then we go all the way back in time with Dawn of the Jedi Into the Void. And move our way forward from there. So I hope you all join me on that journey. Crazy how, ever since after the Vong War, it's pretty much been the Aaron Olston and Troy Denning show. I mean, yeah, for Legacy of the Force, we had Karen Traviss. And for Fate of the Jedi, we had Christy Golden. But the people that have been consistently writing Star Wars since after the Vong War have been Aaron Olston and Troy Denning. And how fitting that the last two books, at least for now, unless it ever gets continued, in the Legends timeline is by Aaron Olston and Troy Denning. So we'll see how I feel about that last book in the next one. I hope you all will join me for that. Until then, I'll see you next time.